video that we did, it recorded for a while and then it shut off, and I'm not sure why. But this is the class of which you can see some of it. Again, if you're cool with being videotaped, just stick your hands up because this will go like up on YouTube. If you're not cool with being videotaped, get out of the frame.
Not under the table. I'm doing that soon.
Did you raise your hand?
Yes, I did.
Awesome. All right. So, good morning. They have, who here has looked over the materials that Pen sent us? Most of you, I guess. All right. So I'd like to just start off by giving you the floor. Let me see if I can, is the sound up? Can you speak, Pen?
Yep. I'm talking in my normal voice. Is this going to get me to your ears?
Where does this?
I can hear.
Yeah, you got it okay? All right, awesome.
Cool.
I'd like you, did anyone look him up on IMDb and check into the credits? Produced a lot, backdraft, and well, would you mind sharing a little bit of your extensive experience?
If you pay enough money, they'll put anything you want on IMDb. Don't believe any of it.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, my career is long-winded. I'll try and keep it short. I quit school at 15, thought that the school system with the best will in the world was trying to help me not be creative. They're not designed to help people like me. They're designed to process human beings. So quit school, tried to start my own businesses in England, photographed the Rolling Stones, fled to Canada when I was 19, found a country that was willing to give me money to make movies. I hung around with lots of young filmmakers and we traded information. We made short films for the television system and learned our trade making 2-minute movies and 3-minute movies, and learned that also if you don't enter awards, you never win any, and people have no idea how to judge your film, so if you win awards, they think they must be good. So the same film before an award, the one after an award, sold significantly differently. So then I decided after 10 years, we won 60 awards for our films. We had done a whole bunch of things, 2 Oscar nominations, and we're just freaking people. We're not special. We just scrambled to keep our asses together because otherwise we'd have to go work for other people. So I would shoot the movies, I would edit them, we would borrow the cameras to the rental houses and pay them back once we got our own money back. And it was all done through relationships. It was all done through making people understand how passionate you were and trying to win them over. And I wrote my first drama and had no freaking idea what I was doing writing a drama. Directed actors, never done that before, worked with a film crew, had never worked with anything but documentaries, had the most miserable time in my life, thought I was an utter fraud and a failure, and that movie won 14 awards. Not only that, Norman Jewison saw it, who is like one of the most amazing filmmakers out of Canada, and invited me to go to Hollywood, which scared the shit out of me because I thought, you got to be kidding. This is an accident. I just managed to survive that movie. Don't take me in. I'm the wrong guy. Which I've learned much later is called imposter syndrome, and we all have it. To lesser or greater degrees. Came to Hollywood, started working and fixing up Stallone movies, fixed up Rocky II, Victory, and because we've made our own films, we could sit with him and talk about how to make a movie. And so he hadn't directed. And so we looked at the Hollywood system, which broke people down into tiny component parts. An editor never worked on set. An assistant editor had to work for 6 years before they were allowed to become an editor. And in our world, you shot, you edited, you sold, you did everything. So we then got into the studios at a fairly high level because we were saving movies like Victory. And we then decided that we wanted to screw our own movies up from the beginning and started trying to sell scripts. We made an independent short film from, an independent kids movie from a script we developed at MGM, independently financed. Then we went on, did a couple more, horror movie out of Montreal for TriStar, which again, I wanted to direct a movie, and it was a horror movie before I died, and the studio liked it. And Shane Black, if you know who he is, always tells me it's a cult movie, and I go, yeah, right, cult classic my ass, you know. and then wrote Robin Hood after 3 studios told me it was a waste of time, stupid idea, and one of my partners also agreed with that. And wrote it because one assistant, the guy who was like 22 working at our offices, said he'd help me. And it was his inspiration, the offer to help, that actually started me writing it against all the odds of it succeeding. And there's more stories behind that. Robin Hood caused Ron Howard to decide that maybe we did know what we were doing, and therefore he was going to shoot Cape Fear for Amblin, but decided that he'd give us another shot working with the writer on Backdraft, and we turned him around. Then we got a number of films made: Tank Girl, Blown Away, The Dangerous Lives of Altar Boys, my own film Moll Flanders, which I directed with Robin Wright, Morgan Freeman, and more recently we did a movie called Phantom with Ed Harris, David Duchovny, William Fichtner. And along the way I also managed to revive the Outer Limits TV series. It's a long-winded. I told you it was going to be long-winded.
Keep going, enjoying it.
And again, it's because I love imagination. I hate repetition. I'm no good at repetition. I'm no good at being employed, actually. The truth is, I run very fast because I don't want to have to do what other people tell me to do, because I'm really bad at it. I'm much better at trying to figure out how to do what I want to do. Even though I'm full of imperfection, I usually get it there somehow. And so putting on the Outer Limits and being able to revive it meant that I could surround myself with very creative people, thinking up one-off ideas. Anthology was great. And I then managed to also revive The Twilight Zone. And we'll talk about that if we choose to, about how that happened. And we ended up doing a number of MOWs, including one that I wrote, directed on Houdini, which starring Jonathan Sheck, Mark Ruffalo, Emile Hirsch, again, when they were still just breaking. So I might sound like I've actually done something, that I've got a career behind me. I disavow all of that. And it's going to sound really nuts, but I want to share this shit because otherwise you're going to think that you're the only ones that feel the way you do. And it's not true. Most creative people feel very vulnerable and they dismiss their past because that doesn't focus their attention. We focus on what we haven't done. And I always say my errors of omission, the things I chose not to do or scared myself out of, have always pissed me off about myself for much longer than when I made an embarrassing mistake trying to achieve something. So I'm focused very much on what I haven't done, the scripts, and one or two very, very personal and impassioned scripts that I'm willing to go out and make an absolute fool of myself over and over and over again to try and get made. So that's a long-winded intro, but it means that I have a lot of experience. I'm not educated, never went to film school, had to figure it out. And I'm really happy to share my failings as much as my successes, because you'll learn more from my failings because it's more like what you feel like. So.
Awesome. Well, we have with us students who want to be directors, producers, writers, animators, editors, cinematographers, sound design. Did I leave anybody out? Anything out? So this is all relevant to each of them. Some of them want to wear multiple hats as well. And I think the bottom line is that as filmmakers, they, need to have that experience of kind of learning and doing everything.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I appreciate every one of you for what you do. Sound design, for instance, was a giant discovery to us as we were making our movies. In Canada, we were making short films. Yeah, we were doing films that were 10 minutes long that went into the movie theaters. We found that the people who were working with us who were sound designing made our movies feel bigger. They'd put dogs off screen barking when a horse whinnied on screen, and they'd have helicopter passovers, which you never actually saw, that made the movie feel bigger. So yeah, I learned very early that sound actually is magical. It can create emotion. It can do all kinds of things. Same as music. I think you, as an echelon of creative people, are contributing to an extraordinary time in our business because the technology is free. You can practice on your iPhone. And if you don't, that's your own fault. In my opinion, if you wait for other people to give you big opportunities, you won't have used all the small opportunities to develop skills that let you actually succeed when you put all these skills together at bigger opportunities. And I used to work, whenever I switched on a camera, it was 16mm film, and I could just hear the dollars running through the camera next to my head. And every time I switched it on, it was scary, because I didn't have money, I didn't have investors. My partner went once to an awards ceremony, took his shoes off, put his fingers through the holes in them, because that's what it cost us to do the movies we believed in. And at the same time, we were getting grants, and we'd go fight to get companies to invest some money, because we tried to point out that our movies were prestigious if they got on TV. And we were not, towards the end of our time in Canada, we were not getting the grants because they thought we were too successful, and therefore we didn't deserve it. You know, it's like, we still don't have any money, we just look good. So, you know, sometimes you're going to be battling to do what you choose to do, but raising the money, getting the solutions found, getting an audience, delivering that material that you so yearn to create, you have to use the same creativity and tenacity as when you did to get the stuff made.
Excellent. So why don't I just ask if there are any questions right off the bat about what he said so far, or is there any? Yes. You said. Oh, I thought.
I guess I had a question. So when you dropped out of high school, did you go into like making movies right away? Is that what you knew you wanted to do, or did you try other things? Or?
I was born into a family where my mother and father were making short theatrical films. So at the age of 4, I was watching my father using a camera and going to movie theaters and actually going with them to meet the distributors. And they were making these short films about things like people who kept strange pets. And in fact, on my book on screenwriting, there's a photograph of me at the age of 4 riding a live alligator in one of their movies. My mother died when I was 8. My father went to rat shit. My sense of security went out of the world, but I still desperately yearned to be creative, and didn't know how or why. I just had this need to belong somehow to a cast of people who could create spells, what I call it. And I went through 11 schools. My handwriting was awful because 3 to 4 schools tried to constantly change the style of cursive I was using. I spelt badly, I had bad grammar, I had terrible math skills, and I quit school after getting the school photography prize, the lead in the school play, and an article in the school magazine, because I thought life would never get any better at school. My English teacher at school was the only one that wasn't beating on me to become what they wanted. And he ignored all my failings and said, essentially, he believed in me as a creative person. And that, at a time when my stepmother and my father were shitting on me, shitting on my brother and sister, it was a psychotic and evil time at home. There was no love. And there was also a giant, how dare you think that you could be somebody special, you egomaniacal prick. You know, you go get a job working in a factory. And my father sent me off to go get a job in an electric blanket factory. He sent me out to learn what's called radio repair, Ohm's law, resistance codes, all mathematical things, in order that he was going to give me a future. So I quit, went and worked in a photography store where they photographed brides, sold cameras and things. After 6 months, but I learned the basics of photography. And then I went, worked in a factory in a photography department and watched the walls close in within days as my ideas of who I was and what I could achieve in the world came down to like this factory. And I think human brains just naturally do that. And that panic, at the same time, I was managing to sell photos to magazines, convinced the BBC to send me off as a teenager to photograph the Rolling Stones, because I phoned them up and convinced them that I would have a different point of view, and if I photographed them candidly, then I would be showing a teenage vision. It was really good bullshit back then.
Nothing's changed.
And that also I ended up being a discotheque disc jockey. I don't know why, because I was really not very I guess they must have thought that I had something to offer. But and I tried starting my own business, and I just had no tools, no one to mentor off, no one to copy. In England, there was no sense that someone like me had a future. And so when my father had tried to abandon my stepmother and soul with her, of course, he fled to Canada. He was going to marry somebody, and then she panicked out of it. And so I went to Canada really to go and be his ally and try and actually see if I could actually get some love from this guy and some support. And he panicked and went back to England, leaving me with his bills, his car, which I couldn't drive, an apartment with a 2-year lease. And I found it was more pleasurable being in that world where it was young and interested in creativity. It was a country that supported its artists because they defined the country's culture, as opposed to America, which the radio and TV signals just swamped over the border. And so they put money into trying to create a voice for Canadians. So I was in a world where it was normal for a 15-year-old to be making sing-sound films. I'm going, holy crow. And I learned from a 15-year-old who was impassioned and helped sell his films to the networks, because I learned selling was survival. And so that it all along the way, it's been gaining insight from other people. I worked for a terrible company that made educational films, loathed their attitude, thought they were dismissive of young people and their ideas and values, which I'm incredibly protective of. And also worked for a company that had won an Oscar for making an innovative and very unique film called A Place to Stand. And the innovative one was working with Marshall McLuhan, who was the guru of communications in the world at that time. And I'm 19 or 20, I have no idea half of what he's talking about, but the other half is fascinating. He's talking about people falling into a trance when they watch a movie, and that if you look around the room in a movie theater, you'll see people are moving their mouths with the characters on the screen's expressions. And he's saying there's something going on here. And that always stayed with me, and also that willingness to inquire and explore stayed with me. So he had a great influence on me, even though I barely understood. You know, as an academic, I'm no good. But as a curious person, I'm pretty cool. So, you know, he gave me this sense that you could just dive into things and find out why they existed or pursue them, as opposed to being told what they were and get it right. Big difference. So sorry, long-winded conversation again. I love cameras. I am still yearning to do what I call cast spells with my cameras. And I'm doing photography now, having broken the rules. Which is unlike anything I've seen any other person do, ever. And I'm doing it with nature and impressionistic ways of looking at koi and water, and the pictures that I'm producing stun me, and they're all experimental. I walk to a koi pond and I go, what am I going to do today? And I'll go, okay, I'm going to bump up the ISO to 3000. I'm going to put an ND9 filter on. I'm going to shoot the koi out of focus with 10-second shots and see what happens. And I get images that once I've tweaked the raw to give it back some density and some contrast, that are just mind-blowing. And sometimes I'll shoot absolutely rock hard, fully realized, fully focused shots too. But it's trained my eye to do this, to look in a way that I've never seen anybody else do. And I find it incredibly exciting because there's no rewrites, there's no studio, there's no one leaning over my shoulder telling me what it should be. And I'm just pulling photos out and people go, wow. So that independence from a system that needs large amounts of money is very therapeutic, because the other system I'm in, I'm working on some of my projects for 18 years trying to get them in.
Any other questions? That's awesome. If you don't have a question, the way I have a question. Oh, Grant, go ahead. And please say your names.
Okay, so my name is Grant. Nice to meet you.
Say your name.
Thank you, Brian.
My question is, what in your experience constitutes a successful pitch, especially when it comes to something that you would consider a passion project?
Well, I'm going to give you the rules of a pitch, but my first rule of everything is ignore everything I say that goes against your instincts. If you try and follow someone else's process, you will not be as successful as if you actually find your own process. But I think that selling, and because I've taught a little bit and I've learned how to verbalize this in a simple way. So I'm going to give you a set of dynamics, maybe that's the right term for it, Grant. By the way, what field are you interested in, Grant?
As of now, it's mostly writing, directing, and some producing.
All right, well, cool. You know, in all three of those fields, you will be pitching. You're going to be pitching an actor your story, you're going to be pitching a studio to finance your movie, and you're going to be pitching sometimes to actually get the right to write that movie. It really comes down to my process. Is from observation and success. And I pitched and sold a lot of stuff. So when I look backwards, I see to some degree there's familiar rules that I've used. First one is I always research the people I'm going to pitch to. My statement is people don't buy from strangers. We have a thing in our body called oxytocin. Oxytocin is a chemical that's set off when you hug somebody, when you nurse a baby. And what it is that happens is that if you go into a meeting and you've researched the people that you're going to meet with, and you've Googled them, and you've figured out some of the common things you and they share, you will find that you can then discuss something. It creates a bond, it creates a level of comfort, and they're more willing to hear what you have to sell them. And so if you don't do that, you go into a room blind, you have no sense of belonging, you don't have tools to help yourself overcome your own doubt and anxiety because you don't have goals immediately with these people. And it all has to be sincere. You have to be authentic. You can't bullshit because most people know. Even if I was bullshitting you. Right now, you know, oh God, he's full of him fuck himself. He's not telling us the truth. He's just trying to pump up his own head. And you can tell that I really care about trying to communicate to you because it's meaningless, this whole thing, if I'm not. If I don't actually talk to you and give you something that you connect with, then we're all wasting our time, and I'm not excited to do that. I am excited, though, if I can actually help you guys change your lives and do things which are constructive and get you to your goals. That's magic to me. So, first rule, be friendly with the people in that office. Say hello to the assistants. Make them feel like they're human beings. Discuss things with them, because later on after the meeting, you'll be phoning the assistant to say, is this a good time for me to call back and see how my sales pitch went? And again, I say this is not a trick, but to actually be humanly interested, because these people also grow up in the industry. And so where an assistant is usually on every phone call in Hollywood, and Hollywood won't be the only system you'll work within, but Hollywood has the assistants roll calls. Even when the boss is driving home, the assistant is still at the office rolling the calls. And they know everything that the boss does. They know more than the boss does because they're talking to the other assistants. So they're very powerful and useful people to have as your ally. So you go there. You had a cup of coffee. You're wired. The other people aren't wired. This isn't the big thing for them. You've prepped your material right before you walk in so it's fresh in your head. You said something. You found out your dad and they went to the same college together and they were like a year apart. So they feel like you're cool. That's good. So the first thing is make friends and make an effort to make friends. Second one is, I say there is no bad pitch if you're passionate. Human beings are designed to capture other people's emotions and reactions. It's a survival mechanism. We're a group animal. If somebody's excited, our design is to go figure out why they're excited and see if there's something in it for us. And so if you're passionate about something, you will send out signals unconsciously that what you have is valuable. And if you don't tell people that this that you're doing is valuable before you tell them what it is, you're avoiding, again, creating an opportunity to increase their participation in what you want to achieve. So I always say that the reason there is no bad pitch is if you're almost incoherent and excited about something, the buyer will want to pull it out of you just in case they're missing something. So I went and taught at USC, and they were teaching people to pitch like fucking trains on a track. You know, you got 3 minutes to tell your story. I hate that. Absolutely hate that. What I think is more important is pitching is a conversation between you and the potential buyers, or you and the buyer's emissaries. The buyer's emissaries are really figuring out who you are and if they could trust you with their careers, or whether their boss is going to shit on them if they bring you into the room. So the more you see this as a conversation where you explain why you're impassioned, so that they get a text of emotional relationship to the material before you actually tell them what the material is. Then the third thing, I hope you're writing those down, Brian, is define what you want to sell in terms that they want to buy. You don't go into a place and say, hey, I want to make this movie because I want to do it. I'm not going to buy your movie. But if you go in and you say, I want to make a movie that wins an Oscar like The Godfather. And they go, shit, I'd like to have one of these on my shelf too. So, so I've learned very carefully before I pitch my story, I always define what I'm doing in terms of other successful movies that these people would yearn to actually be a part of and associated with. And it also defines very carefully, it's like putting a sheep dip barriers. You're sending them down the channel to where your material is, and you're getting agreement on the purposes of it, rather than letting them try and think it out. And let's face it, if I walk up to you and I'm going to sell you something, you've got 1,000 things going on in your head, somebody's coughing their mind out over there, poor person, I'm trying to sell them something, they can barely think for themselves. Well, most studio executives can barely think for themselves. So if you don't give them handles and guidelines, you're really missing your opportunity, and you're only going to get in once in a while. So here's the deal. I've met you. I shook your hand. I told you that your dad and my dad went to the same place. I've said that I'm extremely passionate about this project that I want to share with them. It started off because my wife had a dream. This is an example. It's not real, but my wife had a dream that kept her up for 3 nights in a row, and she told me about it. And then I started to stay up and have nightmares. So I decided to write it into a script. Now, I got you. You want to know what that is? And it's impassioned because it's personal to me. And personal and passion are very important. So you define what you do in terms of things that would excite someone else, or they can relate to why you're excited. My mother died when I was 8. I want to make a film about a guy who loses his mother. Oh, okay. It makes a big difference. So then I used the tool, okay, so now I want to define what I'm going to sell you. And I decided I would write a script that was sort of like halfway between Aliens and The Exorcist. And you go, oh boy, those are 2 major movies. They make shitloads of money. I wouldn't mind taking that to my boss. And then I say, my story is about a defrocked priest who was recruited by NASA and taken to the moon because they found the devil's bones up there. I could sell that in any studio in America today. And what you've seen is that I've actually done a pitch that was 3 sentences. Because they don't need the rest. What they needed was to see that a movie could succeed, that they would be happy to develop with me, that I'm a reasonable guy, and that I actually am not going to embarrass them with their boss. And the idea is pretty cool. The second thing you'll discover is that frequently you're brought in to pitch things, not because they actually want what you pitch, but they have something like what you've done that they can't solve problems on. And so you always ask if there's other things that they're interested in discussing with you, because usually some of the greatest things I've done in meetings have come out after they've said no, that they didn't want the thing that I was actually selling, but they read my material and they've got a project with problems, and would I be somebody to solve their problems? So that willingness to engage can frequently give you an opportunity. And then we have to do, sometimes you have to do it for them, sometimes for us. But I always say, find something in it for you. but you're creating relationships. If you create an opportunity by writing something you didn't particularly love, but can find an emotional purpose in for yourselves to work on it, then that will grow your skills. And so I firmly believe in doing things that aren't necessarily immediately obvious on your path, but never doing things which are destructive to the thing that makes you excited and want to create. Sorry, Brian, long-winded.
Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Any other questions or follow-up? Yes, Brian.
So I guess
This is
my name's
Ryan.
Ryan. Hello.
Hi, Brian.
Ryan.
And I was kind of wondering how you got over that, like that first hurdle, how you kind of like got to making films with a budget, if you will. Like what was the process behind that? Did you just apply for grants until you got one, or did you make some stuff with zero money that got people interested enough to get you money, or was it like what was the process that got you from nothing to something?
Very early on, I worked in a film lab. That was my very first job in the film business. Working nights in the film lab, there's a wonderful job. And I met a few people in the lab who were really nice guys. One of them happened to have a camera I could borrow. He went to work at another lab. We found short ends of film that people weren't using and got them really cheaply. I filmed my buddy, then put him through his lab at night so nobody knew, so I didn't have to pay. I got another friend to edit, and we borrowed an editing machine. We put it together, took it to a sound place, and had a friend improvise playing guitar music to it. So it was a silent movie, edited. It was about kids on the street in Toronto in a poor part of the street. It was called Playground. It cost me $100, and I took it in to the CBC, who had a department that bought films for filling in things during the, if they had a break in a program, they could stick on one of these fillers, and they gave me a contract for $1,000 for this $100 movie. And I'm going, holy shit, this is freedom if I could keep doing this. And again, most things don't happen easily, so I was still working for somebody else. I was being bullied at that place. And I was sort of like yearning to break free of it. And then my friends that were working at the sweatshop film education place got fired. They laid everybody off because they used to do that occasionally when all the salaries got too big. And then they bring in other green young people and screw them over for a while. So I started a hippie house for filmmakers. So I rented out rooms to other people in this house so that we could all share the cost of living and keep our costs down. And about 3 of the guys got fired at the same time. And I thought, well, you can either panic or why don't we just start a film company? So we started a film company, went back to the CBC and said, what would you buy? And they said, well, we'll buy 2-minute, 3-minute shorts, things that you can throw up on the air anytime. It doesn't have a beginning or an end, a day in a park, a day sailing, something like that. A week later, we were back with a film on sailing and a film on parks. And we had borrowed the cameras. We talked the people at the rental store into giving us the cameras until we got paid. And I had a reputation for being a good guy. I hung out with a lot of people, so it wasn't hard to do this stuff. I wasn't a total stranger. And we had a small community in Toronto, so we could do that. And that, I learned that I had to sell as much as I had to create. And so we started learning that we were making these little 2-minute films, 3-minute films. And I said to my partner, we fired one partner within a week because he wanted to boss us around. We didn't like that. He was older than we were. My other partner, was a really good guy, started having drug problems and losing his sense of worth. And he'd been thrown over when he lost his job by his girlfriend. He was really, I couldn't help him, and so he wanted to get out. So I ended up with one partner, and we looked at that if we took these little 2-minute movies, and they were all about the same subject, and they were evolutions of that subject, we could actually join them into a long movie, and then we could try selling it. And so it sounds so fucking obvious. I'm sorry, but it wasn't. And so I decided, what's my partner love? Because I need to motivate him to get to it. He loved racehorses. He had raised in the British countryside. He could read the racing form. And so we decided we would make a series of small films about a racehorse. And we showed when the racehorse is born, when it's in the fields with its mare, when it's being sold as a yearling at the sales, when it's being broken in, and when it races. And we put all those pieces together and ended up with a film that sold around the world, non-narratively, and put large amounts of money back into our hands to be able to keep gambling.
Very cool.
So it was Ryan.
Yeah.
What do you do, Ryan?
I want to it be more on the pre-production side, like writing, producing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my goal. Right now, I work in a movie theater.
Oh, you do? That's fantastic. Hopefully you get to see the movies.
I do. I get to see 10 a week.
Oh, that's awesome.
Brilliant. I mean, what you're doing is you're unconsciously learning the conventions. And I also am firmly a believer that storytelling is biological. It's a natural thing. And the more you watch movies, the more you're going to just have the grammar and the legacy of all those instincts from watching those movies naturally in you. As I said, I'm absolutely uneducated, but incredibly curious. So one of the things I did, Ryan, was I followed up a guy who was doing tests on people, showing them movies, taking blood before and after he'd show them a film to see what happened if he showed them films with 3-act structures and if he showed them films where there was no evolution or development of character or plot. And he found that when he did that with the 3-act structure, people's oxytocin and their cortisol levels went up, which literally meant that when you showed people a story that worked on a 3-act structure, their biology changed and received. And I've come to the conclusion that we naturally are storytellers. You turn the weather into a story. You turn gossip into stories. And it's the way we pass our lives, is we problem solve by using symbolic tools. And that there's an organic process to the purpose of storytelling, which is that they say there's only 7 plots. Well, there's only 7 plots because there's only mating, avoiding being eaten, Jaws and Jurassic Park and Alien. There is finding how to overcome alpha males, which is a Rocky or it's a shootout movie, and we constantly put alpha males up and other males to go out and knock them down. And essentially what we're looking at is that these things are in us. And so if you trust your body to write, and you write from your inner instincts, the ones that are the most scary because they don't necessarily follow the rules of what you're being taught, you will evolve to write naturally good scripts to your artistic skill. Hopefully that doesn't sound too weird, Ryan, but...
No. It sounds like something I've kind of thought for a while, not exactly in those words, but, it feels similar to kind of like how I felt about stories for a long time, just discussions with people.
Well, I've had the privilege of trying to write to please the studios, and what I found is when I was young, I tried to write stuff that I didn't actually have to own. In other words, I wrote goofy comedies, Take the Mummy and Run, which was about a guy who's accidentally inherits a museum, sort of a bit like the museum things now, and discovers that he's going broke and must bring a mummy back, and it comes alive on Halloween night, and he's got to get it back or he's in trouble. That didn't sell. I didn't like it. I did it because I didn't have the courage to write something that was meaningful, because I didn't think I was good enough, and I was running away from taking the scary position of writing things that were fulfillingly real and different from my nature. And I'm very, very big on people finding their voice, finding their natural skill and depth as a creator, because when you do that, when you surrender to it, you will have what's called a voice, which means that your material is different. You're writing it from your own inner organic originality, which can include your culture, your DNA, your life experiences, the things that have fucked you up. And the more scarily you push your skills out there, the more you do things that take risks, the more chances there are that it will be original and different. And that then becomes your job to figure out how to help others see it, which means you then have to put the handles on it. But when we came to Hollywood, we went and met with the people who were selling, so it's like the people who were analyzing the marketing of movies. We couldn't believe that the studio we were working at had a division that told you what the audience wanted. So we took those guys to lunch because we thought, well, this is going to short circuit things. And we sat down with them and said, okay, so what works? It seems the most basic thing. And they said, new, interesting, and different, but our people don't know how to sell it. The audience wants to be stimulated by originality, new experiences. They don't want to see a carbon copy of what they just did. It doesn't stimulate their emotions. So, and the only problem was that the studios never wanted to risk when they sold. They wanted to be able to show people that they were going to lose money by copying something from last year rather than make money by doing something that was original. And that's mainly because the people that run studios are a different kind of mechanical mind, and they don't have much imagination. They grab onto these jobs because it seems like a glamorous world, but they're not impassioned to do things. They're impassioned to protect themselves. So our job has to be to help those people see themselves in what we're trying to sell. The very first script I wrote, the one that was a half-hour drama, I wrote because I had no rules, no one was telling me what to do, and I succeeded, and it scared the shit out of me. So I didn't write anything serious for a long time. And then when I pitched Robin Hood to 3 studios, because I had a son, I wanted to make a movie where altruistic heroism, where people were willing to die for the future of other people's children, was something that I now had an impassioned feeling for. 3 studios told me it was stupid. My partner wasn't interested, as I said, and I started writing it. And I found it poured out of me. And it's not as good as the script that we ended up with by any means, but it poured out of me. And it had natural things, including a childbirth in it, which I cried when I wrote, which was mimicking my wife's and my experience of her having an emergency cesarean. And it felt like, to me, oh my God, I put new life coming into an adventure movie, which defines it as a much richer and more emotionally contextual adventure because it's about something. And it felt foolish writing it. You know, now I can justify it, but you're writing an adventure movie with bows and arrows, and suddenly you're writing a birth scene. It's like, come on. But it was the enemy, Muslim, working as a giving somebody an operation which no Englishman could do because he'd given cesareans to horses and saving little John's wife. And it gave me again this insight that I was writing out of passion as opposed to what I was supposed to do. And those things capture people. I'm on the set of my movie Moll Flanders, which I'm directing. Long stories there. And my partner John says to me, how come none of your characters have mothers? And I literally did hit myself on the forehead. I go, oh my God, I have never written a script with a mother in it. I've written scripts with Robin Hood, no mother. My Moll Flanders script is about a woman who's pregnant in prison because if you got pregnant by the guards, they would keep you alive for 9 months until you gave birth. And she loses her own daughter. I wrote a movie on Houdini, who was a guy who lost his mother before he was ready to give her up, and then tried to find psychics so he could reach into the netherworlds and still get love from her. And this is because I lost my own mother. So when you surrender to what you write, and I call these life scripts, they come out richer, they come out more complex, the acting chops required are deeper, the language is better, and they channel out of you. It's like you're taking dictation from, as the Romans called it, the muses. So I am really, really hoping I can inspire you to try taking risks and not copying others, because when you go in to sell what you've done, what makes you different? What makes you special? Why should I hire you to do a rewrite on my project? Why, as an actor, would I want to say your lines when they're trite, conventional? Because I'm an actor I'm a musician in my heart. I'm playing the violin in my creativity, and you're just asking me to plunk, you know? And so, again, I just say, fucking go for it. Go to the place that's scary. And what'll happen is once you've gone there, you'll tweak it, you'll noodle it, you'll find out which parts work, which ones don't, but you're expanding your own creative voice. Every time you do it, you're engineering structures in yourself that are enriching and supporting each other as those experiences grow, and you'll see it come out of the next piece of writing. Sorry, Ryan. I love the fact you're seeing movies. That's cool.
Thank you.
Well, one of the things that you mentioned that I'm just going to point out is that, you know, when Penn was doing this, he talked about short ends, and you had to buy film, and then you had to process film, and then you had to wait while the film was being processed, and you got it back, and then you edited the film, and you can do that all on your phone and your computer. I mean, it's absolutely free, except for the cost of the phone. I mean, it's an amazingly different world that we live in today. So the opportunity to do as he had done, or as anyone has done in the past, is completely yours.
And it's, you know, there's markets too. If you think about it, go to the local store and make them a little video that they can actually put on their website. Why the fuck not? You know, I see film students all the time waiting at USC for their chance to do their thesis film. They spend 3 fucking years there. They're great people waiting to get the opportunity to do a film that's been assigned to them by the profs. Someone else has written it and someone else is producing it. And I'm going, well, that's kind of nice, but you could be doing something every weekend. You could be creating things for people in the world that you already know, or you could create, you know, a public service announcement that you then give to some place that you believe in. And you could be using your creativity right now. It's only you that think that you can't, which is why it's so exciting.
It's very, very true. And one of the things that I thought was interesting about what you said prior is when you went to the CBC and you said, what do you want that you can sell? I mean, in other words, you asked them a question about what they needed and then went to deliver what needs they had. And any one of us can do that.
Yeah, I mean, you could, if you have a place that you love, or whatever it is, a hobby that you love or something, and there's a place that has a center for that, you can go in and say, what would actually help you guys? Can I do a 2-minute thing that go on your website? I mean, it is, and you can have actors do it. You can do it with the most imagination possible. You can do Lawrence of Arabia for a stamp collector. You know, I mean, it's like, whatever it is, your imagination is only the thing that you choose not to use.
Excellent. Excellent. Other questions? Yes, Lay.
Hey, I'm Vu.
Sorry, Boo, Lay.
No, I was talking.
Yes,
Yeah,
no, but I always say your name backwards.
So how different do you think you would be now if you went to film school?
I think I would have been far less creatively effective. I think I would have been far less capable of selling. I think that the hard knocks of rising up through adversities, which was severe and disabling almost at times, has made me a survivor. I've tried to learn what will keep me going, so that the scripts that I'm still fighting for, I'm impassioned by because so much of my life is in them. And film school tends to be an attempt to efficiently give you the tools of making films, but it doesn't necessarily give you the technology of your own ability to create an interface with those that can help you succeed. And that's the thing I feel is most missing. Sorry, was it, how do you spell your name? Boone?
No, it's VU.
EU? Oh,
V is in Victor.
And what areas are you interested in?
I like sound.
Yep,
Yep.
that's cool. As I said before, I love sound. I love mixing movies because most of the hard part is done. And it's kind of like Frankenstein. You've done your cut, and it's still laying there, and then you start putting sounds in, and it starts to breathe. And you're doing it without all the bullshit of 100 people around you. It's just you and 2 or 3 guys and the sound mixer, and it's the most exciting thing when you finish your sound mix because that's the first time you really see the film alive. So, you know, I have great anticipation. It's the reward to get, after all the pain is to get to the sound studio.
Yeah. Who else? What else?
More ladies. 18% of the movies made in America are written by women. It's grossly unfair. I want you guys to make those numbers change.
Absolutely.
So going back to salesmanship,
Yes.
when I went to teach at USC, I was a little intimidated. You know, what the fuck am I doing there? I'm not a professor, and they call me an adjunct professor, which is like embarrassing because it's like I'm a fraud already. When I read the syllabus, which is something I didn't even know what a syllabus was. I thought you took penicillin for that. They had 30 intelligent MFA students all reading the same book, and I go, that's freaking nuts. You know, if it was coverage, we wouldn't give 30 people the same script. So I decided to see if I could get away with changing the system, and I started asking every individual in the room to read a book. And I asked them to take the book and define it in 10 most important things you learned from it that you would share with people who were your peers, and sum up the book in a paragraph. And one of the things was, then I got them to read How to Win Friends and Influence People, Think and Grow Rich, How to Avoid Procrastination, because salesman tools are not that hard to grasp. And they're things that are very just common knowledge. They're logics. You know, research the person, learn. You know, Think and Grow Rich. I think it is. It says hang out with successful people. Yeah, you know. So if you got the choice of going and avoiding talking to somebody who's successful, or you can take a little embarrassment and say, you know, could I learn from you? Could I mentor from you? That's how you're going to succeed, is learning from the people that are succeeding. And it's not that dumb, because if you care enough to reach out, you've researched them, and you have something in common that you can say, I would passionately love just to get advice, to be around you a little bit, 90% of the time they'll hear you out. And when I talk about selling, it is creating a unity with you and the buyer is the first thing you got to do. You know, because if you don't understand what they want, then you can't actually sell them. Whereas if you understand that they've done the movies that you most admired and you'd love to be a fly on the wall while they shadow them while they shoot something or whatever, and you can actually discuss what they've done in terms that they value, they're much more likely to let you in. And I learned this also. There's an executive at Fox who was running a young film division there. And he came in and talked to my class, and he was taking business school. I was really getting bored, hated the thing, loved film much more, and decided he would intern. And what he did was he wrote to Bruckheimer and 2 other companies, and he wrote handwritten letters. And he wrote in those letters why he wanted to intern with these people and who he was and what he would gain from that, and asked if they would allow him to do that. He got a yes for every letter he sent. And the reason is, everybody's a flyby. Everybody does the least investment they can. Nobody writes letters. Nobody makes the effort. You've been taught you should send 1 email. It's generic. Well, I see 10 generic emails a day saying, I've got a film about. And you go, gone. Because if that film was any good, it would have sold, and they've sent it out to 4,000 people. Somebody says, I know you did Robin Hood, Mull Flanders, and Houdini, and they're all historical dramas. I have a project that I think might intrigue you. I'm at least going to read the rest of the email. But if you sent me a letter, I'd be overwhelmed. I go, shit, this person's very serious. And again, it's sales psychology. It's tools of selling. Read up on selling. You should actually, one of the things I did again was out of sheer survival. The Kodak representative used to come around in Canada every month or so and embarrass the shit out of us because he'd want to sell us more film stock. And we always had to sort of like hedge that we didn't really have any money because we weren't making any movies. That was always embarrassing. We were just trying to get them made. And one time he came by and was drinking our coffee, and I go, well, you know, we could actually sell more movies if we knew how to sell. Because we hadn't been taught how to sell. And he started and said, do you think other filmmakers feel this way? I said, yeah, a lot of my buddies, you know, none of us have ever been taught the tools of selling. And I always thought that was like car salesman, you know, I thought you were sharks and hacks. And so they actually, Kodak paid for a guy to come from Chicago and spend 3 days with like 10 of us filmmakers teaching us a course on how to sell. And the things I took away from it were, believe in what you're selling. Really simple. Show people why what you've got to sell fulfills a need that they didn't necessarily know that they had. And one of the most important ones was eliminate the objections. And it is the number of objections someone has to buying something is usually more objections than you're willing to probe for negatives. And so, you know, Grant, you're buying a house from me, and it's only got 3 bedrooms, and you wanted a 4-bedroom house. So I'll say, well, you know, here's where you could build on. Is there anything else that you don't like about this house? Well, I'd really like to have a bigger kitchen. Well, you notice this wall can come down. I'll actually put that into the cost of the house, so you don't actually have to take it down. Is there anything else that you'd like? Well, yeah, I was hoping that, you know, there would be fruit trees in this thing. There will be fruit trees. I'll get them. They'll be in boxes this big, and we'll guarantee them so that even if they don't take bloom in the first year, we'll replace them. Is there anything else? I said, well, yeah, and you say, okay, you want a solarium, you want to, you know, we'll do that. And we will then not change the price of the house, but you'll get all those things. And what's left is there anything else? No, you've bought the fucking house. And that's what selling is. Eliminate the objections. Fulfill the needs of the buyer in ways that are genuine. Never change the price because they feel cheated. Okay, Grant, you're buying a house from me. I want $200,000. Well, that's too much money. Okay, I'll sell it to you for $150,000. Oh, fuck, what a cheat that guy is. He was going to screw me out of $50,000. No, so that's why you don't change the price, because you just prove to people you're untrustworthy. So selling is eliminating the objections in the buyer's mind. Most objections are things that they're slightly ashamed to mention because they don't want to upset you, they don't want to reveal their own ignorance, they don't, you know. And so you have to actually pull out these objections. My example on this, life. I've written a script called Malflans. It poured out of me. It was a script that I knew instinctually I was going to write up and write Robin Hood. It's a woman's story. For 2 years I carried it in my gut like an instinct. This was going to come out. It's going to be historical, and I knew it was very important to me emotionally. But I didn't know what it was. Finally, I heard an item on an orphans and foundlings home in England where there were letters left by the women who abandoned their children 100 years before. And I found myself writing the end of a script, which was, so say you child, what do you think now that you've heard your mother's story? And the little girl is 7 years old, says, you can throw me out without a crust to eat, for I would deny that woman that's worthy of my love, for I would deny my mother. And she said, prepare yourself, child, for I am that woman, I am your mother. And I wanted to write a script then about a letter that told a child all her mother's failings, and then if she still wanted to stay with her after she'd lost her previously and they brought her back, it wouldn't be tricking her into it. That script came out of me, and the finished result, I took, we had a deal at a company called MGM UA at that time, and so I took it to the UA head, and I begged him to read it because I was so impassioned by it. I'd also had what I call story midwives read it, people who told me it was pretty good. He read it and said, I don't get it. Sorry. So I went back and met with him and tried everything I could to persuade him because I was so passionate because this story was out of my soul. And he read it again and he said, sorry, I don't get it. And when we showed him the movie, he said, I get it now, I was wrong. So I was depressed. My partner said, why don't we send it to the head of MGM? I said, you're kidding me, that's the Talking Dogs division. They're like not going to do a period drama. And so he sent it anyway. got an answer back. Yeah, we want to do it. We think it's wonderful. We want it for the movie theaters next December, our Christmas release. And you go, huh? And they go, oh my God. And then 3 days later, one of the henchmen phones up and says, oh, we reviewed our slate, and unfortunately we won't be able to fit it in after all. And you go, oh shit. So at that point you can give up, or you can go, my soul is in this thing, I'm going to take one more shot. So I decided to go to the chairman of MGM and UA and see if he would read my script. I am a coward. I don't like doing things like this, but it was more important to me to try than it was to live with the feeling that I'd failed myself. So I go to the office, it's like going to meet the Pope, and I'm invited in, and I start to talk about the script that I've written, how passionate I am. He says, yeah, you know, when she started to get drunk, I just thought she was such a bitch that no audience would ever go with her. And I go, oh shit, now I know why the MGM guy said no. He actually had the courage to tell me that his boss had said no. But here I was with his boss saying no, and at this point, any rational person would give up. Because the three heads of the three divisions had all said no to me, and I switched into the course, which was eliminate the objections. So I said to the chairman of the board, what else didn't you like? And he said, well, you know, she did so-and-so and so-and-so. And I said, yeah, I could see how that would feel that way. It wasn't my intention, but, you know, that's a very valid. What else didn't you like? And I got the chairman of the board, who had actually read the whole script, to go through the things that had upset him or he didn't like. And then I went away and in 3 days corrected those things. We call it asshole proofing. Sometimes you've got to put things in to make really clear what your objectives are, because people don't always get it. And by putting the script back to it rewritten, I thought I was going to lose my head. I thought this guy's going to scream at me for wasting his time. I'm in an office at MGM, and he walks by the office, sees me in there, and he's like the school principal who wants to give me a caning. He goes, you, my office. And so I go there, and he says, that's one of the best scripts I've ever read. I want to make it $10 million, 2 stars like Remains of the Day. I'm in. So what was that? It was that I learned that selling is a part of getting to your goals. And any of you can do this if you care enough about what you're selling. But you won't do it for something that you just thought, oh, I'm going to write this because that's what the market wants. And you don't believe in it, so when someone says no, you're not going to fight for it. Which comes back to why it's so valuable to create your own voice, to allow that magic of who you are to come out, stop hiding it because you think you're not supposed to be that different, or that there's a system that will only accept you if you conform to what they do. And none of the guys that are up for Oscars were conforming. They're all taking fucking risks and sticking their necks out. You look at Birdman, holy shit. Talk about a film that doesn't fit any formula yet. It's brilliant. So, you know, the people who are going to create the vision of the future are not from my generation. You guys have the ability, using your iPhones, using your communication skills, to interpret our world in ways that only you can see. You're living in a world that mythologically has changed dramatically from the world I was raised in. Your consciousness is incredibly different to mine because you have a world consciousness, because for free now you can communicate around the world instantly. We're talking on a TV, which was a dream to be able to do that in the 1960s. We looked at, you know, Man from U.N.C.L.E. and said, shit, look at that. And here we are doing it for free. So, as Joseph Campbell says about mythologies, do your guys know who Joseph Campbell is?
I don't know if they particularly do that. You do? Some are familiar.
Joseph Campbell is the guru of mythology, legends, and myths. He studied at Sarah Lawrence, which was a college my daughter went to. And he turned on George Lucas, to his findings before he wrote Star Wars, which is why Star Wars feels like a legend, why all the pieces fit together. And what he discovered was that, and he has a book called A Hero with 1,000 Faces, that essentially in every culture, in every myth, in every legend, in every parable, the heroes go through the identical steps in order to succeed. And what he wrote was a book called A Hero with 1,000 Faces, but what he really proved was it was only one story, that biologically we keep telling the same story over and over again. And that story fits us. And therefore, his belief about myths was that he was very upset that sort of writing had concreted certain religious beliefs, because he believed that myths were supposed to grow and change with the people as the culture changed, as the climate changes, and they were there to keep reinterpreting the existence of our life through metaphysical experience or through storytelling experience. And you guys are in that tsunami of change. It is radical. Marshall McLuhan used to say the first revolution was the Gutenberg, where everybody could start to read. This is the Gutenberg to the fucking power of 1,000. It is beyond belief that we can communicate around the world. And we're going to have simultaneous translation. So you can be talking to some guy in China, and both of you will be instantly translating each other. So we need new myths. We need new ways of finding and discovering ourselves in a world that's constantly going to be changing. You also need to be able to and supported to value yourselves, because your creativity and your own instinct of success in who you are will enable you to show people your ideas and to be able to change and to keep evolving as technology changes our world. So, my rant, sorry.
No, yeah, we are at that time where we're going to have to say goodbye. But I mean, I've really, really enjoyed this, and I'd like to give you the opportunity to have the final word. But comment from who?
Yeah, I want to talk to you more. Is there any way I can contact you? Like, I mean,
I'm on Facebook. I will answer questions on Facebook. I'll friend anybody on Facebook.
All right.
I have a book out called Riding the Alligator, which is my attempt to put from the heart an approach to being creative in a world that doesn't necessarily always understand you. And it's very proactive about you finding yourself, not me telling you what to do. There's also essays by 12 other major Hollywood writers talking about their creative process and how they are, how they're scared too, which I think is really important. And my goal was that I wouldn't be the only voice in that book, because I thought that would be obnoxious. I also fought very hard to get some women writers to write. I have a daughter. I think this business is sexist, and I think that that's terribly wrong. And I think you guys have to keep pushing and revolutionizing it. I think it's a giant loss that we don't have women's voices, but it's changing slowly. Selma was directed by a woman, Hugluck by a woman. It's coming, but it's not fast enough. So one of the proudest things is I have an article in there that just talks about being a woman by a woman's point of view. And when she gave me that, I cried, because she was able to say the things that I couldn't. And her name is Robin Swycourt. She's a really great writer. So, yeah, I would love you to get my book. I'd love you to steal it. I don't care if you buy it or not, but it is available on Amazon. I give it away all the time, because I'm not about trying to make money. There are people out there that try to make money off selling their skills. Usually they're ex-studio executives, and they're selling you something to tell you how to do it. And I know I can't succeed that way. I know when somebody tells me exactly what I have to do, you have to write this plot change, this plot reverse, it is impossible. So the one last thing I want to say about writing, or anything else that's new, is allow yourself imperfection. Allow yourself to make mistakes. I call the first draft of any script the Lewis and Clark. Any fucking way to the coast is the right way. There is no wrong way. It's anything you discover. When you get to the coast, celebrate it. Get a script out of yourself. Because once it's out of you, then you can look at it. then you can put the freeway through, then you can take out the clutter, but you can't be writing perfectly. It is impossible. So one more thing. If you go to writingthealligator.com, you can download a free chapter from my book, and it's designed to try and help people kickstart their creativity. And that'll give you some sense of whether or not you want to pay for the rest of the book or not.
Well, you've been awesome, and I really, really appreciate it. And and the class is nodding their heads whether you see them or not, so we appreciate it. I'm going to call you later from the car just to debrief, but I've got to go because this is being recorded, and it also has to process before we leave the campus ground. So.
I swore a lot, didn't I?
Yeah. Well, that's okay. That's okay. You know, I mean, that's life. But thank you so much, and well, I look forward to our next conversation, which will be in a little while.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, guys. Enjoyed chatting with you.
And likewise.